All right, so let's dive into some really cool architecture today. You ready for this?
Always.
Okay, so we've got this modern pavilion design, and it's all about minimalism. Think like sleek lines and glowing panels. It's supposed to give off this like serene and almost magical vibe. But let's be real for a sec. Sometimes beautiful designs aren't so practical, right?
Right.
So we're going to look at an architect's analysis of this pavilion. We'll see what's really innovative and what things might need a little, tweaking.
Yeah, I think that what stands out in the analysis is how the architect is always playing with light, especially at dusk. The pavilion looks ethereal at that time. The way it almost glows from within, it's captivating.
Oh, yeah, for sure. You can totally picture yourself in that space, right? But then the architect kind of throws in this curveball. They say that ethereal glow might be too harsh in the daytime.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's not just about one time a day, it's about the whole day. You want it to work with the changing light. That's where layered lighting comes in.
Okay,
Yeah.
so layered lighting, what does that even mean?
So imagine like a bunch of light sources, strategically placed to create balance. So like subtle uplighting at the base to show off its shape, and then softer lights from above to make it more diffused during the day. You're thinking beyond just one light and making a lighting scheme that changes with the environment.
So like a whole lighting choreography for the building. That's awesome.
Okay.
Okay, but now let's get tactile for a second. Imagine running your hand along those glowing panels. Are we feeling cool, smooth glass, or warm acrylic?
Well, the architect actually talks about this exact thing. They love both materials, but they each have their challenges.
Right, so let's get into it. We know glass is durable, but what are the downsides?
Well, obviously glass is super heavy. You need a lot of support to hold it up. Plus, it can feel cold, which might not give that serene vibe the architect wants.
Oh, I see. So it's not just about if it works structurally, it's about the feeling you get from it. Okay, so then what about acrylic?
So acrylic is warm and translucent, and it's way lighter, so construction would be easier, but scratches. Imagine all those pristine surfaces, but with scratches.
Yeah, that would kind of ruin it.
Especially with a minimalist design.
Yeah, because every little detail matters. It would be so distracting.
Totally.
And wouldn't those scratches mess with the light too? Like the glow wouldn't be as smooth.
Exactly. Plus, don't forget about keeping it clean. Glass and acrylic show streaks and condensation like crazy.
Right, because it has to be super pristine to have that impact.
Yeah, you'd need to clean it constantly.
Oh man, that's high maintenance.
Yeah, it adds more cost to the project too.
Okay, so this pavilion might be a bit more work than we thought. But speaking of practicality, imagine being inside this beautiful space. And then it starts pouring.
Yeah.
Not so peaceful now, huh?
That's where the architect's worries about function come in. A flat roof looks cool, but it's bad news when it rains.
Totally. I'm already picturing puddles all over it and leaks and damage happening over time, so not serene at all.
Exactly. And that's where we see a clash between looks and reality. The architect does have some ideas, though, like sloping the roof a little, or adding overhangs so the water runs off.
Right.
But then you might mess with the minimalist aesthetic.
Yeah, it's a tough choice. Do you keep it looking perfect?
Yeah.
Or make sure it can handle some rain?
It's a classic architect dilemma.
Okay, but let's go back to that awesome internal lighting for a sec. It's so cool, especially at night. But remember how the architect said it might be too harsh during the day?
Right.
How do they fix that?
Dimmable lighting.
Oh, okay.
It can change with the light outside.
Oh, I see. So bright at night, but softer in the day.
Exactly.
I love that.
Okay.
Okay, but we got to talk about something else. We can't ignore it.
Mhm.
A structure with tall, thin panels. What about wind?
Definitely a concern.
Yeah.
The architect is worried about it too.
I mean, those big panels could be dangerous in strong winds.
Totally. What if it swayed or panels came loose?
Yeah, that's a safety hazard for sure. So, how do we keep this pavilion from becoming a giant kite?
Well, the architect have a few options. One is internal frames inside the panels. They would make it stronger without messing with the transparency.
So like a hidden skeleton.
Yeah, exactly.
But what about the corners? Seems like wind could really hit those hard.
Yeah, those are the weak points. The architect suggests reinforcing them, like a bracing system. It's all about balancing strength with that airy look.
Right, you don't want it to look like it's covered in scaffolding.
Exactly.
Okay, we've talked about a lot. The looks, the materials, making it work practically. And now wind and making it strong. But there's one more thing we can't forget. Sustainability. Because a truly amazing design isn't just pretty, right? It has to be good for the environment, too.
I totally agree. And this is where it gets exciting. The architect doesn't just think about it later. It's part of the whole design.
Awesome. Tell me more. I want to know how they make this glowing pavilion eco-friendly.
So, with this design being so minimalist, it already helps with sustainability. Fewer materials means less impact on the environment. But it gets even better. The architect wants to use recycled materials, like recycled glass for those panels, or low-impact polycarbonate.
Wow, so the panels glow. A&D. They're made from recycled stuff. That's amazing. Why those materials, though?
Well, recycled glass fits perfectly with the look, that sleek translucency we talked about. Plus, you don't need to make new glass, which takes a ton of energy and has a big carbon footprint.
So it looks great, A&D, it's good for the planet. I'm loving this. Okay, what about polycarbonate?
Polycarbonate is super versatile and strong, and using a low-impact version means fewer harmful chemicals. It's also lighter than glass, so it's easier to transport and install. Again, less environmental impact.
Wow, it's crazy how even the smallest choices matter. Okay, but we can't forget about the solar panels. Where do those fit in?
This is where it gets really innovative. The architect wants to put them right on the roof, and not just randomly placed, they're thinking about looks and placement, too.
So they're not sacrificing the design for the sake of solar.
Nope. They're looking at thin film solar panels. Those can blend right into the roof.
Imagine that. The panels capture sunlight all day, and then at night, the pavilion glows using that energy.
Exactly. It's not just pretty, it's a whole statement about sustainability.
It's like the building is showing us how to build a better future.
Oh.
Okay, but let's be real for a second. There have to be some challenges with actually building this thing, right?
Oh, of course. Turning a vision into reality is never easy. I think the hardest part with this pavilion is those tiny details and making sure the whole construction process works with them.
Okay, I'm all ears. What kind of challenges are we talking about?
Let's start with the foundation. The whole look depends on those tall, thin panels. So the foundation has to be super strong. The architect wants a concrete slab, which is known for being strong and lasting. But they're also thinking about the ground conditions and looking at other options, like ground screws.
Wait, ground screws? What are those?
They're basically giant metal screws. You drill them into the ground to make a base. They're getting popular because they're less disruptive, not like concrete that tears everything up.
So it's better for the environment.
Exactly.
Okay, but how do you attach those huge panels to a screw?
That's where the engineers come in. They need to make a framework, probably using steel or something strong. It connects the panels to the ground screws, but still keeps that light and airy design.
That sounds tricky.
It is.
Okay, so we've got the foundation figured out, but how do you even get those massive panels up there?
Yeah, you're going to need some big cranes for that. And a lot of careful work. Every panel has to be lifted and placed perfectly.
Like a giant, fragile jigsaw puzzle. And how do they stay up there? Especially with all that wind we talked about.
Remember those hidden support structures? That's where they come in. The architect is planning on steel frames and brackets. They'll hold the panels together into the foundation, so you get strength without ruining the look.
Strength and beauty all in one.
I like it. Okay, so the panels are up. What about that sleek roof? How does that attach to the panels?
The architect suggests using hidden steel brackets. They would connect the roof to the columns made by the panels, strong enough to hold it up, but you won't even see them. Keeps that clean, minimalist look.
It's amazing how much thought goes into every detail, even the stuff you can't see. Okay, so panels, roof, check. Now for the lighting. How do they build that in?
This is where it gets detailed. The architect wants LED lights inside the columns or base. And the wiring has to be hidden too, so it all looks seamless.
So like hidden light veins running through it.
Yeah, kinda.
But hiding all those wires can't be easy.
It takes a lot of planning. The wires have to be accessible for repairs, but you don't want to see them.
Okay, so foundation, panels, roof, lighting, all done. But what about the sustainable stuff? How do they actually build that in?
Well, remember those recycled glass and polycarbonate panels?
Yeah.
Finding the right materials is a big part of it. It's not just any recycled glass. It has to look right and be strong enough. So it's a challenge to find the right stuff.
Yeah.
And the solar panels.
They need to be placed carefully so they get the most sunlight, but still don't stand out too much.
Wow. This whole construction is crazy complicated. It's like they're combining art, engineering, and sustainability.
That's a perfect way to put it. It takes a whole team to make this happen. Architects, engineers, construction workers, all working together to make this vision real.
We've covered so much with this pavilion, from how it looks to how it's built, and even how to make it sustainable. This design is way more than just pretty.
Absolutely.
It's a perfect example of how looks and function can work together.
I agree.
And how being innovative can also be eco-friendly.
Totally.
Before we wrap up, I want to talk about something else. We've talked about the looks, the light, the materials, but what would it actually feel like to be inside this space?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And I think the architect has thought about that a lot.
Okay, I'm ready. Take me inside this pavilion. I can just imagine it. Walking into this space, surrounded by all those glowing panels, like stepping into another world.
Yeah, that's exactly what the architect wants. They see it as a sanctuary. You know, where you can't tell where the inside ends and the outside begins, the light coming through those panels. It makes you feel so peaceful.
So it's not just about how it looks, it's about how it makes you feel.
No.
All your senses.
Exactly. Think about the light changing throughout the day, that soft glow in the morning, and then the warm light at midday, and then as the sun sets, it becomes this vibrant, glowing space.
Wow, that sounds incredible. What about the materials? We talked about how glass and acrylic look different, but what about how they feel?
That's a big part of it, too. The architect really likes the smooth, cool feel of glass. It gives you that sense of calm. But they also know that acrylic can be warmer, more inviting.
Yeah, I can see that. It's like the material itself can change how you interact with the space.
Exactly. Good architects know that materials aren't just about looks. They create a mood. Glass might make you feel more contemplative, while acrylic might make you want to touch and interact.
It's like choosing the music for this space. Glass is a quiet piano piece, and acrylic is something more lively. But we got to think about the practical stuff, too. Like, is it comfortable to be inside? What about the temperature, the air, the sound?
Oh, the architect's got that covered. They want to use passive ventilation, so basically openings that let air flow naturally, keeps it cool and fresh, and they're thinking about the sound, too. Glass can be echoey, so they might add things to absorb sound.
So it's not just about looking good. It's got to feel good to be inside, too. Which brings us back to sustainability. How do they make this pavilion good for the environment?
Well, we talked about recycled materials and solar panels, but the architect is thinking even bigger. They're thinking about the whole life of the building. Can it be changed later? Can it be taken apart and reused?
So it's not just a one-time thing.
Right. They're looking at modular design, which means you can change it up without creating a lot of waste.
So the pavilion can adapt over time.
Exactly. And that helps the environment in the long run.
It's amazing how much thought goes into all of this. We started by talking about how beautiful this pavilion is. We got into how it's built and how to make it work. And now we're talking about how it makes you feel and how it impacts the planet.
It really shows how all these things can come together.
It's inspiring. It makes you realize that good design can do so much.
Totally.
It's not just about making buildings.
It's about creating experience
Making people feel things.
and leaving a mark on the world.
I think that's the perfect way to wrap up this deep dive. We've explored so much about this amazing pavilion, from the design to the construction to the experience of being inside it.
We hope you enjoyed it.
We did.
And keep exploring the world of design. There's always something new to discover.
Absolutely. So until next time, keep dreaming, keep creating, and keep diving deep.